you inspire them aspirationally as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that's correct. And I was thinking about that a little bit more after we spoke last night and why that is. And I think that our company, inherently just how it was created, the founders of the company, everyone under 35, 36 now, and that the way that we've positioned the brand just organically is just as a lifestyle brand and who we are, what we want to be. You know, we're centered around the ethos of craft. But when we were talking last night and seeing that that is something it's born out of the millennial cauldron of influence, but it's not something that's limited to that. The appeal spans beyond. So that's why our target demographic, or our biggest demographic, might be white males, Republican, 50 to 60, people who can afford the product. But it's aspirational. They want, you know, the lifestyle that people want is consistent across the demographics.
And so how do you engage that millennial audience? Besides the fact that you're known for having a lot of these cliche qualities that millennials like, you know, custom made, authentic, sustainable, how do you go about engaging that audience?
Well, I think there are a few ways. First of all, when we're looking at giving them what people want out of a brand, millennials especially, is that they want access, they want to see more, they want to see the creative process, they want to have some connection to the brand. And I think that's something that we've really tried to do when we're posting on Instagram or social media. We're sharing, we're having events in our studio, we're inviting people in to be a part of the process. Like, come join us on this. Alternatively, what we've also done is really enhanced our digital presence. I think when we think of luxury, when we think of high-end luxury and the definition of luxury, we think of service and customer service. And I think we have to think about that now, extending that to digital. And convenience is luxury, and making things easy, access for people.
That's a very good point to transition to Christiane. So Christiane LemieuX, everybody, is a design entrepreneur, and she created something called DwellStudio, not to be confused with Dwell magazine. And she's also the host of, one of the co-hosts of Ellen's Design Challenge on HGTV, which I like to think of as the Project Runway of furniture. And just tell us a little bit more, Christiane, about you. And the reason I really wanted Christiane here today is because her market is specifically millennial, but it's a huge market. So it's, you know, mass market millennial. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how that all fits in.
So I created a lifestyle brand called DwellStudio out of New York City, and I launched it in 2000, right after graduating from Parsons School of Design. And at that time, I saw white space in the home furnishing market for things that were more modern in style and really quality-driven, but at a price point that was more accessible than the things that I would see in, you know, in New York. I'd be shopping in the D&D building. So I thought there was a whole world of interest from millennials, from a lot of people. So this was slightly before the age of the internet, just slightly. But what was nice is that it gave me some time to develop the brand, and then when the sort of online really erupted, we were there, we were, you know, in multiple categories, and we were able to communicate the story to millennials, and actually a bigger market, very effectively. So, and I think one of the things that we're all touching on here, things that are very important were that there's an authentic story, so that, you know, I am the face of the brand. I built this brand from nothing by myself, you know, $15,000, the lore, you know, the story behind the brand, $15,000 in my apartment in New York, and scaled it into a very large company that I then sold to Wayfair, which is the largest online home furnishings retailer in the country. And so it's sort of that, also the founder story is part of my story. But what I think is interesting is that along the way, we can see how the internet and how online has actually changed and shaped the way we think about design. I say this often, that the design IQ of the purchasing millennial, and actually everybody in the United States and globally, has gone up so much and so rapidly over the last 10 years because we've been exposed to ideas in a way which a generation before us was never exposed to them. You know, unless you could afford to buy really beautiful, glossy European style magazines, you weren't seeing the images that all of the millennials are being bombarded with every day via Pinterest, via Instagram, via Twitter, via every type of social media possible. And I think people want a piece of that now, whether it's, you know, an entirely bespoke home, or it's something that's representative of design and beauty and quality and personal. And they don't, you know, they're not going to be serviced a house full of brown furniture from a, you know, big furniture retailer.
So we all agree that millennials want something authentic with a real story behind it. And they want to be interactive and a part of that story, would you say?
Well, I think Eric's point about access is so true, because everyone, you expect to be able to tweet the founder of the company or the designer and have them respond to you.
I think it's... I think it's exactly. Sorry, I was trying to share.
Play nice, guys.
Yeah, it is about sharing, and people want the social capital is as important as actual capital for the generation, and that's what people want. So you see, these images, are they showing? I don't know. You could see at all of our events, whether we do a trade show or where we have any kind of party, we have a photo booth there, and it's a photo booth that was designed by a friend of ours also in Brooklyn, where it takes a photo and then you can put in your phone number and it goes right to your phone so people can share it, and has like our logo behind it. We find that increases our time in store, time in booth, like exponentially, and then that's a component of kind of the experience that people want. They don't want something that feels standoffish or like luxury that's like unattainable. It has to be something that they could immerse themselves in.
So Catherine, for example, with this Wear LACMA project, how did you, what technology did you use to try and reach that audience, if any? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just being really cool and underground is also a way to attract an audience, and not all over the social media.
I think elitism does play a good part of the luxury market, but we partnered with Farfetch, which is an online retailer. They were our sponsors. They loved the story of the LA designers, and they said, we're in. So, and 100% of the proceeds also go to LACMA. So this is not where anybody's making any money off of this project.
What is Farfetch?
Farfetch is an online retailer. They are, you'll see their signs all over Los Angeles. Like I've noticed a lot of billboards lately that the stores, you go on to Farfetch and you go to stores. So sometimes what was happening was, that people were trying to tell me who I could show and who I couldn't show, and it is curated, this Wear LACMA project each season. So Farfetch sold everybody. So, because they do it through the stores. So whether, you'll go online, you'll see.
So,
and I tweeted for the first time ever. We have a big social media team at LACMA. They're very helpful.
So Christiane, if the millennials are if their definition of luxury is something curated, personal, authentic, then how do you sell to a big market? I mean, isn't that contradictory?
I think it is, but it's all in the storytelling and the marketing, because not everybody can afford something that is bespoke and perfectly crafted and tailored to them, but they still like the idea of it, and they still like how that resonates and feels authentic. And so I think a lot of it comes down to social media, to communication, to how you tell the story, because a great story is a great story, whether it's one piece of jewelry or 1,000 pieces of jewelry. And oftentimes you're seeing very big companies bake philanthropy into that. So whether it's a Tom's or a Warby Parker, or that's how they're reaching a mass millennial audience with a product that is sort of a commodity, but making it feel special because they're telling a story, and then part of the proceeds go somewhere philanthropic. And I think that's very, very important to millennials. What they dislike vehemently is just big commerce. They don't want to feel like they're being sold to. Ever. You can't push something. It has to be pull. So they have to buy your story. They have to buy your design. They have to want to hang out with you. They want to be in your photo booth. They want to stay there for a long time. And that's the only way. That they refuse to be sold to. Their bullshit meter is so high. And they can see it coming. and they're just going to have none of it. So it's really about the storytelling, and it's really about the access, and it's really about the social media.
So, you know, how are these traditional retailers going to get, you know, ride this wave? I mean, actually, Christiane, we spoke on the phone yesterday, and you said, in your opinion, you think the whole design industry is going to be completely disrupted by this generation.
It's going to be, this whole thing is going to be upended, and it's happening very quickly because technology is what's going to do that. So in the same way that, you know, I took an Uber here, there's going to be technology. I've looked at several apps. In fact, I have a meeting after this with a augmented reality person who's really great in the decor space. And what's happening is that people are going to, because luxury is convenience, and nobody really wants to interact with anybody for a very long time to get their home decorated, they're going to go onto an app, and they're going to do 80% of it on an app with an augmented reality program. And it's happening very quickly. You know, TechCrunch just put out a big article about a company called Modsy, where you can take 4 pictures of your room and it puts a composite together, and then you have a 3D rendering, and then they can service you up ideas for your decor based on a personal profile that you fill out. So it's technology, it's convenience, it's the ability to do it on your mobile device, and then to have the product that you want specifically selected for you.
But won't that become very mass? Like,
yeah, it's. I don't know how they're going to keep the authenticity and do the mass. It's like a fine line they're writing, you know.
But I think in there, this is just one they wrote about yesterday, just to sort of talk about, but it's going to be segmented as well. I think luxury is using technology now very effectively. Like, I look at something like Burberry, who has done an extraordinary job with social media technology, video, advanced sales on the runway and things like that. So it's the large luxury brands that are thinking about this and integrating it into their story and integrating it in a luxury way that feels brand appropriate, that are actually winning in all of these areas.
Okay, well, let's go back to the core question here, which is, has the definition of luxury, what is luxury to this generation, has it changed? Do they want different things from the Gen Xers and the baby boomers as far as the physical product?
As far as physical product, I'm not so sure, and we spoke yesterday too about price point too, and you asked me what effect we would feel, or where I would see from millennials to sensitivity to price points. And I was thinking about it again last night, and I don't think that there will be, or I haven't seen, at least in my experience, any difference in the way a price is viewed depending on the demographic. I think that's going to be still more cultural as far as country specific, as far as how people, you know, in America spend money differently than in Canada or Japan. But as far as the physical product, I don't think that luxury, at a certain point, it is what it is. Like, a fine handcrafted good is a fine handcrafted good, and that's what people want. You know, even if they're viewing it differently, or they're getting to that point of wanting it differently, it's still the end product is the same.
So it's how they get to the product that's changing more than the product itself. I mean, the qualities that we consider make a luxury product are basically remaining the same. You know, just handcrafted and finest of materials and, you know, unique and, but a really important point that you just brought up is this is very specific to America. So what about emerging countries like China and India? You know, their millennials, so to speak, have a more traditional view of luxury, and they are perhaps still, you know, interested in bling, you know, so this could only be specific to America. Would you agree with that?
To an extent, I think a lot of it. I find that our narratives are very price or location specific, and that we have a piece. We did a bunch of furniture from the old Domino sugar factory that they took down. We did all these sugar stools from these antique heart pine beams, and no one outside of Brooklyn really cared about that. So it's very limited. Didn't travel very far, but. So yeah, I think that those narratives, but still, when you think of, for me, when I look at Uhuru, Brooklyn is a very strong brand. In like Paris, they're going like bonkers about Brooklyn. It's a little weird. In Tokyo too. So that, just being from Brooklyn, like, that's the story. That story has, like, that'll travel like worldwide. So
I think it's interesting that there's cycles, and I'm sure you'd agree that the sort of what the luxury market looks like in China and India is very, very different than what the luxury market looks like with American millennials. And I think where big what we consider sort of luxury brands in the sort of magazine spread world of it all, that is very much what's growing and happening in the sort of early cycles of China and India in terms of luxury. And here, I think millennials is sort of anti-label as opposed to buying into the kind of luxury that we've been marketed for a very long time. So when you think of typical luxury. And so I think it's going to be very interesting because millennials don't want a handbag with logo stamped all over it. They want a handbag that was made for them, like one handbag that was made for them.
Which is why at Louis Vuitton you can now get your initials put on your handbag.
Because they're figuring it out.
And why this summer, the Gap and apparently J. Crew, their stocks were really down because it's too cookie cutter for the millennials. They want something unique. So, Catherine, do you think that these, traditional luxury brands, the Louis Vuittons of the world, are going to change the way they do things to try and capture this market? It's not quite clear to me whether they're just gonna keep riding on the, high quality wave, or if they're really gonna have to change their ways.
Well, I think that the luxury brands always do a really good job at what they do, and none of them are, very few of them are really designed by any sort of millennial. I mean, they're all relatively old people like me. But I think that luxury will always be luxury. I think that still young people, I have a stepdaughter who's a millennial, she's 21, and she still loves a Balenciaga bag or maybe even a Louis Vuitton bag with her initials on it. And I just feel like those designers are always trying to make them, they're really, fashion is always thinking forward. So I think that the designers and the people involved in the company are always thinking what's next. They don't, rest on, oh, this is, for us. But I'm a baby boomer, and I'm still interested in what the millennials are thinking and how they see things and how we communicate to them.
So it's a lot about what we've, kind of come to conclude here is it's a lot about delivery and delivering it with a story that makes it feel authentic and unique, and then it can be the same old product somehow, but it's delivering it with the story. And then, Christiane, you also brought up another really interesting point when we were speaking on the phone, and it was about how demanding this generation is of delivery in terms of shipping and
They're extraordinarily demanding because they have grown up with the ability to have 3 or 4 options for the same thing. And oftentimes, what they're looking for is the best. It's sort of the all of the data subset, the best of everything. So the best price, the best design, and the best, in a lot of cases, the furniture business, shipping and things like that. They expect more. And that's and you can see the sort of consumer landscape. Companies are bending over backwards to get them more.
And what about? I had a great question and it just slipped out of my mind. Something about delivery and then
like customer service or something. It's like the
Oh gosh, it just slipped out of my mind. Anyway, delivery, shipping, more and more. Here it is. I found it in that fog somewhere. Bricks and mortar. So how important is bricks and mortar going to be? Because, okay, we're talking about luxury goods. Eric, you were saying last night, someone's looking at a $10,000 chair that you guys do. Is it comfortable? So we, everything's online, but what about, how does bricks and mortar play into that?
Well, I think that, for Uhuru at least specifically, the model's a little different than what you'd say for traditional retail, because we view our showrooms as the brand experience and kind of look at retail in general as omni-channel, where we don't not looking at sales per square foot of our showroom, because it's just for people to experience the brand and fall in love with it. So I think that that's a little different, and we'll quantify that differently. I think that if you are in that traditional retail model, I think I would be a little more concerned.
I think that you bring up with omnichannel, you make a very good point. So there's a whole bunch of native e-commerce companies, and I think about like the Everlanes and the Warby Parkers and a bunch of these companies that never sort of put their foot in traditional retail. And I think Warby Parker is a really interesting example because they've started to open quote-unquote showrooms where you can, if you're buying a pair of glasses, you might want to try them on, or if you're making a sofa, you might actually want to sit in it. And actually, Restoration Hardware is doing this as well, where it's essentially a showroom where you can see all the product, you can interact with it, you can try on your glasses, you can sit in your sofa, and then you can either transact. In the Restoration Hardware case, you have to actually transact online, but in Warby Parker, you can buy a pair of glasses or two, but you've had the brand experience, and chances are you will go back to them again and again and again because now you know what frame looks great on you, you know the quality, and they've seen over the last, I think it is 6 months, that their showroom sales are actually outpacing their online sales. And it's becoming a very big part of their business, and they never thought that was going to happen. I think the same with Bonobos and a couple of the other online only fashion and accessory startups. So it's really interesting. I think you have to be everywhere, is the truth.
I think that there's two designers that are here around the corner. One is the elder statesman, and you walk into his store and you sort of transported. And I think that in luxury, especially in the fashion business, that is what it's all about. I mean, I worked very closely with Miuccia Prada on the Rem Koolhaas spaces that she built, and the Soho store, people used to say, how are you ever going to, and this is not, this is, I don't know, however, 15 years ago, how are you going to ever make this work? And the truth is that you walk into that store and you know all about Miuccia Prada. You understand what the design is, you understand the aesthetic, it makes you think differently. And you may go and buy the clothes up on Madison or maybe even online, but you're gonna have that experience in that store that's gonna make you buy. And the elder statesman does it on a much smaller scale down the street, does a really good job of being in that environment. This is who he is. And same with Irene Neuwirth, who's on Melrose Place. You walk into her store and it's her world, her vision. It makes you wanna buy that $60,000 necklace.
So we just have a few minutes left, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. But what would be your parting words to this audience, who many of whom are in some form of retail business? So what's going to be the most important thing to focus on to attract to capture this millennial generation with all their inherited money?
I would say just digital, making it as easy as possible. Yeah.
I would say be part of the conversation, do it often, do it authentically, and just do it.
Yeah, I would say to make sure you have a story that's unique and different and that makes you separate from somebody else, because there's a lot of other people probably trying to do the same thing you're doing, and all of what they said.
Great. Thank you, all three of you, very much. Do we have any questions?
Mine is for Eric, but it's in keeping with what Christiane and Catherine have said about the story and making sure that story was your very own. So for Eric, you've chosen a name that comes from Tanzania. Is that to impart this unique story, which may or may not be your own story?
So the question is, Eric's company has chosen a very unique, somewhat difficult to pronounce name, and is that part of enhancing the story? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that part. It's a Tanzanian name.
Uhuru is Swahili for freedom. It wasn't chosen intentionally as a brand building exercise, I guess, to answer your question. It is something that guides us, but the name was actually taken because the popular music in the shop's early days was the reggae band Black Uhuru.
I thought you just take as the URL was available.
And the URL was available.
So it's part of the story.
It absolutely is part of the story. If you see our logo, the chair with wings, it's something that guides us internally and externally with our clients. We're not traditional. A lot of furniture manufacturers, they have their running lines and they don't really deviate from that, but we really like to innovate and work with our clients to think outside the box. Internally, in our company, and the way we run our company, we want like everyone to be very autonomous, just have a lot of freedom.
Also, that's a very good point, because it used to be that designers put out design, and now designers, the designers that speak to millennials most closely and most effectively are collaborators. So what Eric's doing is right on.
And the other thing that you brought up last night, Eric, which was so interesting, is that now you've got people coming to you to design all kinds of things. So it's not they want to come to you specifically for furniture. They just love what you do, the spirit of what you do, and they're asking you to apply it to other things such as... Such as soft goods and jewelry, I don't know, maybe even movies or rides one day. But I think that we're moving to a point where almost every brand will be a lifestyle brand, because that's what people, their experience of the brand is not just through a product, it's through what they see this brand makes them if they purchase it. And I think that's what we see, and that opens it up for us to do anything. We're united under the ethos of craft, so whatever falls under that is what we will try to do.
So that leads into my question. How important do you feel is celebrity connected to luxury brand as we progress with the millennial generation? Do we really need to attach a celebrity to sell?
The question is, how important is celebrity to attach to a brand with the millennial generation? Anybody dare answer that?
Well, I think
what I want to be true isn't necessarily true.
I mean, everybody loves a celebrity, but I do think that it's more word of mouth amongst your peers in a way, or people that you hold in high esteem, or people you respect, than more. I mean, I can hear all the people in the luxury business going, "What? We spend all that money marketing ourselves, paying people millions of dollars to represent our brand." But I think it still helps, but I think it's more word of mouth.
Yes, and no, also. In my experience with Uhuru, it has been, maybe as us still being a relatively unknown brand, when we're getting press, especially press in new markets, and press in LA, they're like, what celebrities have you made furniture for? I'm like, George Clooney. They're like, need more, to get the story picked up. So it is relevant in a lot of ways, whether that's relevant for connecting to millennials, it's still relevant for us, and it's an important part for us still. Not that we actively seek it out, but it's something that still matters.
And I think, again, for millennials, if the celebrity association is authentic. So if somebody actually bought it and you didn't pay for them to buy it, or you're not giving them a necklace, or you're not pushing your jeans on them, because the millennials are going to see through that. And I think it has to feel authentic. It can't feel like a sponsored post on Instagram. Because once you start doing that, then I think that their ability to tolerate it drops off significantly. I mean, there's a whole world where celebrity matters a lot. I just think to this generation that's like diminishing returns on that, on paid celebrity.
Yeah. I was speaking about millennials, not necessarily, my peers. So.
Yeah, us. Any more questions in the back?
Hi, my name's Kate. I run an online lifestyle brand called Mr. Kate. I'm a millennial. I have a question for Christiane.
Okay, you and I are part of the same MCN.
Oh,
You're with Ken, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I used to be with Ken, now I'm with her.
Okay.
TMI.
He said TMI, but not at all. Go ahead, girls. Have your conversation.
We got super inside baseball there. Sorry. Sorry.
I was wondering what your experience is like selling to Wayfair. Are you still on as creative director? Like, I know they're just like such a mass brand, so carrying through with the voice of
The experience was really interesting because, like any entrepreneur, I got to a certain scale and I had to choose between raising a whole lot of money to build a infrastructure that delivers furniture. I mean, you guys are, all of a sudden you have to run a trucking company. Or I could sell to somebody who would take what I'd built and do all the things that I didn't like doing and help grow the business. So I chose, I'm a creative person, like I don't want to run a logistics company. So I chose the latter. I like any founder, I have a period of time in which I have to stay while my my deal vests, and that's about to come up actually. So, but it's been really interesting, and I think it's been very, very helpful. I think of DwellStudio as a lifestyle brand that I built, and it's like sending my child off to college now. I sent he or she to Harvard, and they'll run with it and do all the things that I wasn't necessarily great at and didn't necessarily want to do. But that's a personal choice, you know. Building a business is a lot of things, and oftentimes things you never expect at all.
Any other questions? I think we're, oh, how much time do we have left? One more question?
I have a question in regard to, first of all, thank you all very much, very interesting. You've done a great job in developing and promoting your own products and lines. With Millennium as the subject base, you all work with quality and basically superior design. Where does cost of the product come into play? Do you see Millennial as price is no object, or does it get very competitive pricing?
So the question is, are millennials more price is no object, or does cost become important to them?
So I think luxury is a relative term, right? Because what one man's luxury is another man's, you know, pocket lint is another man's aspiration. So I think when you think of luxury in terms of price, I think it gets very tricky, because what is luxury, you know, to Eric, to me, it might be different to all of us, because certainly what we can afford. The millennial generation is huge. Unemployment rates for them, it's tough to get a job. They're saddled with college debt, and so I think price is important, as important to them as it is to everybody else. And so, but I think they have so much access to information that they get to define luxury to themselves in a different way. And also, they get a lot of options that, so you know, you can say leather handbag, and you can go online and find 50 different things, and somewhere in there is the right algorithm where it's what you want at the price you're willing to pay, that feels like luxury to you, where you're connected to the brand, and that purchase is gonna feel good. It's gonna, you know, do that millennial thing where they give it a heart at the end of the transaction. And so I think I think it's relative. But I think price is always, the price-quality equation is always really important. And millennials, I think, less than their Gen X and baby boomer brothers and sisters, are really interested in quality. They're a lot less interested in things that are disposable. And they're a lot less interested than constantly transacting and constantly buying things and constantly throwing them away. And that's my favorite part, yeah.
I think that's a rather positive note to end on. So I just want to thank everybody very, very much for coming, and especially our panelists, KATHERINE Ross, Christiane Lemieux, and Eric VECCHIONE. Thank you all. Oh, and yeah, but this is my job.